exercise was that we will deliberate on education 2. So we have 12 sectors for which roadmaps are being prepared, and education is one of them. So a team is working, putting up this roadmap. Let's come to the end. No, I chose this topic because I spent about 10 years actually working on it. At that point of time, there were about 600 engineering colleges, 2000. And it was very difficult to persuade industry to get into the educational institutions. And when we started this, we started realizing why it was important. Is it really required? These are some of the questions that we're actually thinking about. How academia looks at. And all these happened because we were neither industry nor academia. So these questions were natural to us. And some of the experience that we gathered along is what I'm going to share. These linkages are important because academia generates knowledge and employable trained manpower. This is academia's job. Industry utilizes the knowledge and the manpower. The knowledge gets converted into products, services, and benefits the society. Better life and a quest for it leads to healthy society. And in turn, this creates problems, providing opportunity to academia to work on. So this cycle goes on. So industry and academia have to go locked. Strong industry-academia linkages are also indicative of an innovative, pro-growth, developed economy. So if you look at the developed world, you find them, this is to be an important feature there. Industry and academia, they are two poles. Industry is product-oriented, capital-intensive, whereas academia is creativity and knowledge-oriented. In industry, the product outcome life cycle, the cycle is too short. The outcomes in the institutions from where you come take too long. A patent takes several years. A engineering graduate takes 4 years. Industry feels that, and wrongfully so, that there is some solution available to their problems with academia. How many people are there from industry right now? So this speaks, the last point, short of time. Rest of the crowd, why you are sitting? We expect some support. That means you are short of funds. So this is a typical scenario. I used this slide 15 years back, still the same. Tens of such events and the situation remains the same. The syllabus remains the same. So I was referring to problem solving. There are faculty here around. Suppose if I was a student and you gave me a problem, and I failed in that, how many marks would you give me out of 100? If I failed in giving that solution, I think I'll get 0. Passed. And this is a problem with our system. We are talking about problem solving, and a person who tries to solve the problem gets 0. So where is the scope for innovation, creativity? Is it acceptable to industry? So this speaks of the state of affairs. The teachers have to be at the command. They have to decide the problem. And they have to evaluate their students. If you are failing that student, have you done your job? Something is to be fixed. There is something wrong, seriously wrong. And we cannot pass the blame to others. Academic courses, naturally, when you are not allowing your problems to be solved, your students to be solving problems honestly, you will have job seekers. You are not going to have job creators because they are not creative. And all these problems of lack of employability. So research remains in papers or thesis. And some of the demands from the new universities, colleges are somewhat mind-boggling. We have student interns from MIT University coming to us for about 4 or 5 months of time, and they expect 2 international research papers. Faculty's potential is underexploited. We are not doing justice to our faculty. We force them to evaluate the students in a different way. Not as the education wants, but as the fee that they pay want. So there is again something wrong there. Institutions starve for funds. There is some sort of discrimination between private, public, and this and that. We are stifling innovation and creativity. Industry spends considerable time to orient graduates for their needs. They have to shell out a lot of money. Why can't this job be transferred to the institutions, academic institutions? And industry continues to pay for the technology that is bought from outside. So all this linkages, if you see closely, these are different formats that come to your mind when you talk about industry-academia linkages. So being a physicist, curious as I am, I thought of putting it in the form of a spectrum. So I plotted this way, time scales and the activities, the time that they take. So this is how it came about. If you see that at the bottom you find teaching. Up there in the middle you find research. And still further up, if you come, you find entrepreneurship. Just a broad brush. At the bottom you find the relationships are unstable. Whereas as you move up the spectrum, there is stability and grounding there. At the bottom you don't require much resources. But as you move up the spectrum, you require a lot of resources. Your students can get placed that will not cost you much, but if you try to invest in your resources for research, it will cost you money. Then you have evolution of institutions, new versus established. The new ones who start their activities are at the bottom. And there is a need for you to constantly move up, up, up. And this holds true for the developing and developed countries. The developed countries are at the top, extreme end of the spectrum. And then the symbiotic relationship between problem and the solution. At the bottom you have the problems, from the top you expect the solutions. Creator-consumer kind of relationship. These are the characters of these two industry and academia. The picture is not that gloomy. I was discussing during the lunch break, and I was pleased to hear some good examples, success stories. You have this PhD College of Technology in Coimbatore. One has to see to actually understand how they work. And I'm told that after Caltech, PhD College has the second largest entrepreneurial alumni. I think it should be true. Then you have this model of BARC Training School and IIST, Indian Institute of Space Technology. Then you have a kind of role reversal kind of model where you have IITs and NITs establishing STEP, TBIs. So academic institutions having a small unit which works like an industry. And on the other hand, you have Infosys, which is an industry which has a small academic unit. In fact, it's big. Then you have BITS Pilani model or MIT Manipal, who believe in outreach. They send out their student and the faculty to the industry. And then we had our own models, which I call as co-creation model. And it's also called as triple helix. So you have three strands of industry, academia, and government. Industry has money, no time. Academia has time, no money. I'm putting it loosely. And then government has both. So that's how we function. So we co-created, co-funded, co-developed, and collaborated to set up 35 centers of relevance and excellence. And the closest one is here in Delhi Technological University. And in Tamil Nadu you will have so many. I think 15 to 19 are there. So adequate time was ensured by us because we found that industry was missing out of this game. So we sat there to assure that your interest is being taken care by the government. So that was our model. When it came to funding, we told the institution, don't worry, we are there. So we were hand-holding these TIFAC cores. Ensured that there was sufficient funding, and actually the funding was the last thing we talked about. So each project was costing us around 10 years back, somewhere between 4 crores to 15 crores. Totally unheard during that period. I think. So these are the values that we were able to create for the industry and impress them to participate. And by the time 31st or 34th or so centers were created, we actually had industries rushing to us and to find and asking us, where are you going to set up your next center? So we had almost turned the tide. Earlier it was the institutions who used to come to us for money. At the end it was the industry who was coming to us trying to find out where the next center would come up. So it was totally changed. So I'm not going to read all this. So this is the value that the triple helix creates for academia. And the value that the government creates for itself. Increased employment prospect for youth. Now we are talking about skills. We are taking care of all those issues, skilling in our centers. So these are the roles that government could play in that TIFAC core model of triple helix. We reached out very small cities. We said no to IITs. We embraced the colleges below them. So the conference is about sustainability. And we feel, or I feel, that these were the reasons that we discovered. Reluctance to move into each other's domain. There's always kind of a xenophobia. Resources that I talked about, time and money, time and funds, are subcritical. You cannot expect a sustainable industry academia linkage if you give peanuts. And if an industry gives a very little of time, so there has to be some minimum critical time and funds and other resources to be allocated for this activity. Otherwise, it is just going to end up in smoke. Usually there is one level contact at one time. You have one person from there, one person from here. So they talk and divorce after some time. No common language. Industry would speak in ROI terms. You will not understand. There is no permanent structure or mechanism. And when it fails, always it is the other party which you can blame. So you come together, and when it breaks, is always the other person. The bandwidth of interaction is very narrow. If you do a research project with the industry, it will always be only limited to that. Why not expand it? Why not involve other faculties? Why limit only to one faculty? Why not conferences? Why not something more? And the attitude and the mindset of stakeholder. What do I get? One paper, one patent, that's all. It should be looked from the other side. What does my organization get? And finally, the vision. I picked up this word, synalagmatic, which means bilateral or reciprocal contract in which both parties provide consideration and have mutual rights and obligations. So the time has come when we move on to this kind of arrangement. If you persist with that, we are going to meet again and again like this. So, and these are going to be the elements: powerful vision, common space and language. You need to evolve a vocabulary that you are comfortable with, industry and academia. The resources that you have to invest have to be optimum. Follow-ups have to be there. The contacts have to be regular. It cannot be just one-off, sometimes kind of arrangement. You have to institutionalize this arrangement of linkage that you establish. Incentivize. There have to be incentives to keep the people motivated. Faculty is seldom incentivized. There has to be some encouragement. Then usually these arrangements are 5 years, 6 years, or 10 years. But the terms of engagement remain the same. They should not stagnate. As you move on, as you innovate, you have to upgrade that. And then finally, you need to have wider bands. If you look at the spectrum, to make it sustainable, to make the industry academia linkages, you have to widen the spectrum. Your activities should span more and more. So that would be the key to sustain the linkages. Finally, a closing quote: the key to everything is patience. You get the chicken by hatching it, not by smashing it. So if you want sustainable linkages, you have to have patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj Saxena, for the brilliant exposition.